Hi, welcome everyone. Today I'm going to paint this nice scene from Tahoe. So let's get right to it. This is watercolor on paper. So I'm hoping that we will be done in half an hour. Let's see. So I'm doing the sketch. So remember, for watercolor, you usually use thinner paints, and so you don't want pencil marks to be shown. The hills, not seen properly. I did the hills, the sun, and now I will do the stones. You can't see the pencil marks very clearly, but feel free to pause the video and use this picture as a reference to sketch your stones. So here you see in the foreground the stones are really big, and as you go farther and farther they become very small. So that's what I'm going to do very quickly. And I am sorry that it's not shown very well, but since it's like loose, it will not take long and we will start painting pretty quickly. Rough edges, stones of different sizes, big and small. And now I'm making them smaller. The angle of which this photo was taken was probably very low because, we wanted to highlight the water. This is a picture from Lake Tahoe. And as you can see, Lake Tahoe has um, pretty interesting color of water. So this is what we were going for. So you see the horizon is like pretty high up in the image. Okay, so now that we have that, so now you see there the sun is yellow and there is sun rays are also yellow. And in the foreground, you see there is like some white in the rocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this masking fluid to just mask the sun and the rocks, because we're going to paint them the last, and we want the white of the paper still, and we're going to paint the rest of it, the sky and the background. So we're going to paint the sun and the rocks the last, but then we want white of the paper to remain, to show. And this is why I'm going to use this masking fluid. So after I remove it, we still have the white of the paper. So let's go about doing that. I got this bottle. So here is the sun and the rays of the sun. So in the original painting, what you see as a reference, I actually didn't use masking tape. I like painted around it. So hopefully now you'll see better results because we're using masking fluid. So now you can see the rocks actually. If from the pencil you were not able to see earlier, with the masking fluid, you can see that the rocks are more visible now. So masking fluid is coming on my table. I hope it'll come off as easily as it comes off from the paper. Since this is a larger area, I will use a brush to just spread this. Use one of my not so good brushes because I know after I'm done with it, the brush will be good for nothing. So this is faster. And we have enough masking fluid on the other stones, so I'll just take some from the other stones instead of using. Okay, there we go. As you see, the masking fluid is drying up on the brush. So this brush is going to be utterly useless. Which is fine by me because I have already spoiled it. So use a spare brush. Good thing about landscape is you can take a lot of liberties. You know, even if your stone is not exactly the type that you wanted, nobody's gonna notice. The stones, they're like, they come in all shapes and sizes. You know? As you see, for these stones, only the tips are lighter in color. So I'm not bothering about covering everything with masking fluid. Look at that sphere that the masking fluid has become on the brush. Okay, I took that out. Remove the extra masking fluid. One thing is it saves masking fluid. The other thing is that it will dry faster. The amount of masking fluid I have, it would probably take 15-20 minutes for it to just dry. So by removing a layer, I'm actually making it faster to dry. Okay, so now we are done. And here's the brush again with its ball, removing that. Now, for the sky. So we start with the sky. So you notice on the sky, there are three colors that I've used. So this is when sun has just started. So it's like the first crack of dawn. So there is still darkness, which can be seen in the sky. So you could use gray or really dark blue. I have used ochre here, and then it transitions into yellow with orange. And then of course around the sun, it is the brightest. So I have left sunlight there. So that's what we're gonna do. And because the sky is supposed to be really smooth, so we'll use a technique which is called like painting on water. So I'll put water on the sky and then I'll put the paints on. So here I have my watercolors. I don't have a dark brown here. I have that in tube. So here's my palette, dark brown. I already have orange here, and I'll take some yellow because yellow in my watercolor cake is like really done. Now the reason why I am keeping these colors ready, here's the yellow, orange and brown. So the reason I'm keeping these colors ready is because once I put the water in, I want to work very fast. I'll not have time to, waste, because otherwise the colors will not bleed into each other, which is what we want. So I have clear water here, make sure you don't use leftover. The label is visible for you, but it is like really clear water. I'm just putting water on the sky. If it goes over the hills, that's fine, because the hills are going to be raw umber, really dark. So you can paint over the hills. Now I start with the raw umber. So you see, I'm putting color, but it has its own mind because there's water on the paper. It's like, spreading. Now I will clean my brush and I will put orange. People think watercolor is easy, but it is actually the most difficult medium to work with. You have to work really fast and you need to have an idea of what color goes where. There are ways of correcting mistakes even in watercolor, but there's a limitation to it. So anyway, so that's a thing. But then on the plus side, once you know what you're doing, you can be done with your watercolor painting in no time, and that's what I like about it. So you see, because the water is still wet on paper, the colors are blending into each other and I don't have to do much to do that. There was some gray on my palette and that's why this yellow has become a little dark, but just a thin strip of white around the sun to convey the brightness of the sun. Okay, and then on the outer edges, because we want to convey that it was dark at some point, I'm going to make that the darkest point. So taking some pure raw umber and putting it around. I thought the raw umber and orange that we put were like, not enough of contrast. So that's why I'm putting another layer. And I'm trying to keep the shape a little bit like roundish, like, almost as if like sun is coming out of a window and that's how the light is traveling out of the sun. So there we go. That's our sky. That's our sky. Of course, it's not exact, but like I said, landscape, you can take liberties and it doesn't need to be exact. So now, the bottom part of the rocks are like relatively dry. The top parts are not. So I'll just take a paper and blot it a little bit. To check if they're dry. If not, we'll take the excess out. Okay, it's all reasonably dry, so we can paint over them. Okay, now the fun part. I love painting the water and the bright areas. So again, to paint the water, we need clear. But now in this bottle we had raw umber, so that will not do for water to be clear. For the landscape, I have another bottle. Use that. So since the area is bigger, I'm using a thicker brush for this. So same technique, first water over paper. This makes it really fast because otherwise, like, you'll end up painting around the rocks and then your strokes are not at the in the same direction. So you will have to, like, keep going over it with water. And that's one thing that you can do, right? Like if you forgot to like put water on the paper first and you want to paint over it, um, you just go over it with water and colors will blend. If you want to learn that, I will do that, show that technique in another video. So here, pay attention. So this is Lake Tahoe, and there are like two colors of the lake, two distinct colors. So there's a blue green and there's a regular blue. So this is what I'm going by. So on the closer side, we'll do the blue green, and the blue green will be darker, and the regular blue will be lighter. So I have these two blues in my palette. So I start with the blue green. For those who are wondering, this is Winsor Newton watercolor cakes. They are really expensive. Well, yeah, very expensive for watercolor, but these are artist quality watercolor. And as you can see, they blend very well. So I feel it was worth the investment. So remember, on the foreground rocks, I did not put masking fluid the whole rock, so I'm avoiding going over the areas where there is no masking fluid. I'll use another brush for the other blue because I don't want this blue to, I want the two blues to be really distinct. So since the other blue is lighter, I'm using more water. Again, notice because there's water on the paper, the colors are bleeding into each other and they're spreading. So your brush strokes are actually not seen. There's a droplet of blue on the sky. So just blot it out. See, I said there is a way to correct mistakes, but then limited. And it's okay if colors are uneven. We don't want colors to be even because finally it's water, right? It's not like a wall where a painter has painted something to be exactly like, one shade of blue. So this is water. It is moving. There's algae beneath the water. There's a reflection coming from the sky from different things. So yeah, we want it to be different. So I'm thinking that this nearer side of the lake needs to be a little bit darker. So I'm just going over it a little bit more. Okay. So put these two brushes in dirty water. So will we will need our clean water when we paint the sun later on. So anyway, now we do the hills. Now hills are small, so I use a fine brush for the hill. And remember, I had the umber still on my plate, so I will use the same thing. This brush is too thin, so let me use another brush, a little bit of a medium one. Okay, so I'm using a medium brush now. I love flat brushes because you can use them like a thick brush if you paint like this, and like a thin brush if you paint like this. So you see, I'm leaving some white here. I'm making sure that it's not touching the water yet because the water side is still wet and I don't want my hills to bleed into the water. This side is dry, so actually bottom part of the hill I will do a line of gray just to show that there is a difference in shade. The top of part of the hill is probably getting some light from the sun. Look at this part, it's bleeding now. We'll fix that later. Okay. Now everything is wet and we need to start working. So let me give it a few minutes. I see some bleeding happening, so I'm just using like no water brush to just go over it a little. So this while we wait for this part to dry, I can do one more layer of raw umber on the sky to give it that feeling of light coming out of darkness. I'll pause the video and we'll come back. I guess I can't pause the video when we are live. So just find things to work on. Let's see, this part may be dry. Maybe I can, yeah, this part is dry. Can use the eraser just like that. To remove the masking fluid. Okay, good. It's coming out. And you see, those parts are still white. They're becoming blue because we are impatient and the surrounding blue is still wet. So now it's bleeding into our pebbles. But if you have a few extra minutes, please make sure you let them dry. So here you see the blue was completely dry. So, okay, I can't put my finger on the paper. My finger may be dirty. I don't want this painting to get spoiled. I'm using the umber part of the painting to hold. My hands are clean, so I'm getting brave and holding it from the painted side, but still I'm trying to keep the surface area of touch to be very minimal. And this part is really wet. I think there are still some areas which are dried. So I'll start from those areas. Okay, I have enough to go by right now. So let's do our yellow. Like so for the sun, right? Into the sun. I'm taking a very thin brush, pure yellow, pure yellow. This is the glare of the sun that you get. Now I'll use the brown umber to paint the rocks. The faraway rocks actually will not have, we won't see them to have like, much of sunlight. We will kind of feel that they're in darkness. But so I'm not leaving any space for, highlight for these rocks. So remember, this was the part which bleeded on. The blue bleeded on onto the white of the rock. Now see, notice our blue was so light that umber is able to cover it. No issues. Some masking fluid remaining. Taking some more umber because my umber is over my plate. So now we're on the bigger rocks, so I will use my medium brush. It's my medium brush. Here it is. I'll just make some uneven textures here, and I'm still leaving the bottom part white for making them gray. As we come closer, you can see more textures in the rocks which are closer. So I'm making them lighter now. We'll come to those big rocks later, and I'll continue to make black here. My husband is calling me. He doesn't know that I am recording. Let's see for how long he calls before I need to tell him that I'm recording. He went for a test in the hospital and he just texted that he's back from there. So nothing serious. I can meet him after we're done with this, which will hopefully be another 15-20 minutes. Okay, now we're done with those rocks. So now we need to remove masking tape from here. Water is taking longer than masking fluid to dry. This masking fluid has taken some paper with it. I think it's because I'm not erasing it correctly. There is a special eraser to remove masking fluid. Maybe it's time for me to buy that instead of using this one. So anyway, there are the others which are like still wet. So now for these rocks, I will paint them with a highlight. So you see there is yellow highlight and then the brown. So we'll start with clear fluid, yellow highlight on these rocks. This paper has become that's fine for the rocks. That texture is fine. It's like kind of highlight from the sun here, what we're making. I'll use some brown, the burnt sienna, this one. It is stone, so like there's some texture here. If you're liking what you're seeing, please like, share, and subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything, but it actually encourages me to make such videos. A little bit about me. I am an engineer by profession. I work for Intel, but then art is like oxygen to me. If it like, I knew how to earn money from art, I wouldn't be working for Enter. That pays my bills. This gives me motivation to live. So that's where I am. So if you find that you are learning something with these videos, please, 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 please like, share, and subscribe, because that means I should be making these videos. I should continue making these videos. If not, then at some point, I may get discouraged and, like, not make the videos anymore. I quite like the texture that the, like, masking, like when I removed the masking tape, the paper actually came out. So that actually gave some interesting texture to the rocks. So that's what art is, like, you don't, how to make best of your mistakes, how to turn happy accidents into deliberate pieces of art. And in the bottom, some gray texture again. It's okay if it bleeds into water. It's like almost like reflection. There will be some reflection of the rocks and water, right? We'll do that later, but even if it's coming out right now, it's fine. So the bottom part of the rock will be in shadow. So that's why it is the darkest here. So it looks like this video has become longer than I intended. So since I actually did this painting yesterday without the masking fluid, it took me 40 minutes to do that. I thought with masking fluid it will become faster because I will not have to go around painting the water and stuff. But I didn't account for the time it would take for me to put the masking fluid to, wait for it to dry and then remove it, and so on and so forth. So my apologies for underestimating the time for the painting. And you can see there is some blue which crept in, but that's fine. When we paint over it, it gives some grains to the rock, in my opinion. So again, taking the burnt sienna, completing the leftover areas from the previous round. Since this part will be in shadow, making it darker here. Some whites here or there is fine. Doesn't look like highlights. There's a white over there, which I could cover, but I'm thinking, let it be. That's looks almost like wave. So let's just go by the happy accident, right? What do you say? Just making the reflection like one line everywhere for the rocks. I kept my water at a weird location, so there are droplets on my painting from the water that I kept taking on the sky. So let me just blot that out. Use some yellow to even that out. Like I said, there is a way to correct. Okay, and there. So there you have it. This is the Tahoe landscape. If you like it, please share and subscribe so that I can keep making, and YouTube algorithm suggests my videos for anyone who wants to paint landscapes, Tahoe landscape and other watercolors. Thank you. Bye.